One of the things that I've always loved doing here at Joe Blow is turning an audience onto a movie that they may not have heard of. And for many years, I both wrote and narrated a series called The Best Movie You Never Saw for our YouTube original channels. So in that one, I always tried to turn our audience onto kick-ass movies that they might not have seen, with the movies chosen ranging from movies that flopped to movies that have become unfairly obscure, or those that no one has heard of at all. Of all those movies, though, I don't think I've ever covered a film quite as obscure as 1982's The Challenge, a great movie that I was tickled pink to be assigned by the guy who runs this channel, Chandra. As it turns out, he is also a fan of this movie and might be literally the only other fan of this movie that I've ever met in my entire life. Indeed, The Challenge is a great movie that laid such a flop when it was released in theaters in 1982 that it was later repackaged as a TV movie under another title. Ouch. But seriously, I mean, how cool does the premise sound? Scott Glenn learns to fight with swords and teams up with Toshiro Mifune to seek revenge. And it's directed by John Frankenheimer. Sadly, no one has seen the movie, but hey, that's why we're here, as we're hoping to change all that on Loving the 80s. So The Challenge stars Scott Glenn as Rick, a down-on-his-luck boxer who's hired to transport a valuable katana to Japan, where, of course, it's promptly stolen, although it turns out it had been a fake, with him nothing more than a decoy.
Where's the real one?
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
The sword is part of a priceless pair called the Equals, which are an heirloom to a warring family called the Yoshidas. The two surviving members, each of whom has a claim on the Equals, both want the sword. Toshiro Mifune plays Toro Yoshida, the head of a martial arts school and the rightful owner of the Equals. His brother Hideo is in the Yakuza, and he also desires the sword, but for more selfish reasons, and he blackmails Rick into infiltrating Toro's school and stealing the sword. Rick does what he's told, but suddenly he finds purpose in the warrior's code of Bushido being taught by Toro, with it not hurting that he's also fallen in love, or at least lust, with Toro's really hot daughter Akiko. He goes over to Toro's side and trains in martial arts, which of course comes in handy when Hideo and his Yakuza thugs come calling. And yes, the martial arts in this movie are really good, with Steven Seagal, before he ever became a martial arts movie star, actually assisting in some of the choreography, as he actually lived in Japan at the time. So The Challenge came along at a very cool time for star Scott Glenn. We know him now as a character actor, and he just made a huge impression in the movie Urban Cowboy, which starred John Travolta, and he played kind of Travolta's rival for the affections of Deborah Winger. He was the big bad guy in that movie, but he really had star presence, and he was being given a big build-up.
Where'd you learn to talk English?
School. What did you learn?
While headlining a martial arts action movie set in Japan probably seems like a good career move to any of us nowadays, the film actually came at a weird time for both the director, John Frankenheimer, and action cinema in general. You see, the genre was actually frowned on, and many likely thought Glenn was just wasting his time in a movie that could have been earmarked for Chuck Norris. The same goes for John Frankenheimer. While he was responsible for some of the greatest thrillers of the 60s, including Birdman of Alcatraz, Seconds, 7 Days in May, The Manchurian Candidate, and perhaps his best movie of all, The Train, his career fell off really badly in the 70s. He made a disaster movie called Black Sunday, which was great and predicted to be a monster hit, but it got caught up in a terrible political firestorm due to the fact that the villains in the movie were depicted as members of the PLO. And his follow-up was an exploitation horror movie called Prophecy, which no one saw. To many, The Challenge seemed to be him at the absolute depth of his career, in the dumps. But it proved to be a huge flop, with it only making $3.6 million at the box office, with it distributed by a pretty small studio, Embassy Films. A year or so after it came out, ninja movies did suddenly become popular, so it was actually repackaged as a TV movie called Sword of the Ninja, despite the fact that there were actually no ninjas in it. It was cut by about 10 minutes, and it was given really bad commercial breaks with fade-in and fade-outs on all the surviving prints from the TV movie run. And for the longest time, that was the most widely available version of the movie, as it frequently aired on TBS in their block of action movies in the late night. For years after, though, The Challenge was almost impossible to see, as it had only ever been issued in its uncut form under its original title on VHS. So when I actually saw it for the first time, it was via a VHS rip. Luckily, it has been reissued by Kino Lorber with a gorgeous transfer which allows its many assets to finally be fully appreciated. For one thing, Frankenheimer was a master of the genre and knew exactly how to make a movie like The Challenge. He shoots it like kind of a film noir, with Scott Glenn perfect as a down-on-his-luck dumb mug boxer. It's the kind of role that Robert Mitchum would have played in the 40s or 50s. Frankenheimer was also known for his ability to immerse audiences in a foreign culture, and you really do buy it when the aimless Rick gets taken in by Mifune's Toro. Another cool aspect is that Toro isn't given any English dialogue. Mifune actually struggled with the language and was always dubbed in his American films. That would have come off as really cheesy here, so what they did was they kind of did what they had done with him in Shogun, which was they just let him speak Japanese and they gave him an interpreter character. And of course, the interpreter character serves another purpose here in that, well, it gives Scott Glenn a love interest. It also has a great score by action maestro Jerry Goldsmith and a groovy henchman role for Calvin Jung, who would later go on to co-star in The Day After and play one of Clarence Boddicker's hoods in RoboCop. Yet what really makes The Challenge worth checking out is the incredible climax, which is a masterful piece of action filmmaking. The choreography is great, with you seeing kind of the influence of Steven Seagal here, as well as the fact that it was choreographed in part by one of Mifune's colleagues from his Kurosawa days, Ryo Kuze. The ending is a brilliant mix of gun and swordplay. Akiko is kidnapped by the villain Erio, and Mifune and Glenn team up to infiltrate his stronghold. The two have kind of a cool buddy chemistry, even though neither understands the other's language, and the way they fight off the villains take advantage of the East meets West aspect. Mifune's Toro uses archery and swords, while Glenn uses gunplay and his fists. Scott Glenn kills 16 bad guys, Mifune kills 17. Not bad, eh? But what really makes the movie worth the price of admission, or the price of a Blu-ray, is the final showdown where Glenn, as the amateur swordsman, has to go up against the masterly Erio and fights dirty as fuck, using office supplies and whatever else he can find to grab an edge. It's a precursor to the type of fighting Jackie Chan would later become famous for, and in fact, there's a Christopher Lambert movie that came out in the 90s called The Hunted, which I feel like for sure owes a huge debt to The Challenge. Anyway, hopefully this video, which is praising The Challenge to the high heavens, will encourage you all to go check it out, as it's really a gem that not enough people have seen. Like I said, you can buy it from Kino Lorber, and if you like action flicks from the 80s, this one is a no-brainer, as it really is one of the lost gems of the era.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joe Blow was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.